When you hear the name MG, what comes to your mind? Perhaps historical British sports cars, or maybe more recent Hondas rebadged first as Rover and then MG? Currently MG makes, among others, vehicles like this B crossover called the ZS, and it's one of the cheapest and largest cars in its segment. What to expect? Let's find out.
MG motor is currently controlled by Chinese state-owned giant SAIC, Shanghai Automotive Industry Corporation, which also happens to be one of China's automotive Big Four companies. The ZS B crossover is in production since 2017 and it's one of Chinese export hits. It's simple, cheap and surprisingly big inside and out. How big? At more than 432 centimeters long and almost 181 centimeters wide, the MG ZS is just marginally smaller than the Dacia Duster. All other B crossovers are smaller. The ZS and the Duster challenge even the smaller end of the compact crossover segment because they are about as big as the Suzuki SX4 S-Cross.
At 448 liters, the boot is one of the biggest in its segment. At first glance it may not look large, but it turns out you can drop the floor pretty deep. And there is still some space in the spare wheel well, as the ZS only comes with a repair kit. If you're planning an autogas conversion, there is good space for an LPG tank.
Other than that, not much is happening in the boot. There are two side niches where you can store things like window washer fluid. There are no shopping bag hooks or, in fact, any anchor points to secure luggage. The parcel shelf doesn't fit under the floor. The seats fold almost flat, but the difference between flat and almost flat is a small hump. Almost is what one can say about the doors covering the sills. They almost do, but they do not entirely, so you have to watch out stepping in and out when the car is wet, like in the winter. In the back there is good legroom and headroom, the latter being partially due to excessively reclined backrests. There are two USB-A ports, but no air vents. The door pockets are large, but there is no armrest. There is also a tunnel running through the middle, not very big, but the middle passenger will notice it anyway.
The cockpit is simple. The base model gets analog instrument cluster, while the higher trim, the higher of two trims, gets a digital display. The contents, again, is simple. There is some basic onboard computer with some system warnings, messages, basic settings basically. Everything else is on the central display, but before we get to that, I'd like to point out there's no outside temperature readout anywhere. And I don't think MG was cutting corners because there's a temperature gauge for the tires. It's just an omission, by mistake.
The driver's display is controlled with VW-esque buttons on the steering wheel. The indicator and wiper stalks look like they are MG's own invention. The central display features more advanced settings, multimedia and navigation. Yes, the upper trim gets sat-nav, but its really only purpose is to display speed limits stored in the maps. By the way, speed limit information appeared on the driver's display once, but I have no idea which road it referred to because the place where I saw it had a different speed limit.
So the central display is best for Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. It's wired, and unfortunately with the cable plugged in, the phone no longer fits in the phone cubby. And the cubby is so shallow and under such an angle that the phone can slide out when you step on the accelerator harder. Okay, let's not kid ourselves. This car doesn't have the oomph for anything to slide out of its place. But more on that in a moment. Now, under the central display, there's a bunch of buttons for AC controls, and that's a plus. However, the feedback is displayed with certain delay sometimes, so you're never sure if you set the temperature or the fan speed.
There is some basic AC information on top of the display, but in order to go into the AC settings, I need to press a physical button under the display, which is not bad. However, This one says on-off, so I thought it's to turn the AC off. And yes, the AC is manual. Manual in this test example is also the gearbox, which I specifically asked for. And here we arrive at the curious MG ZS specification. You can order the car with a petrol 1.5-liter normally aspirated engine, producing 106 horsepower with a 5-speed manual transmission. It's either in base Excite or higher exclusive trim. The other engine option is a 1-liter 3-cylinder turbo with a 6-speed manual or a 6-speed automatic. This engine variant is only available in the higher exclusive trim.
And this is where things get a bit complicated, because some of the exclusive trim is available only with a turbo engine, and it's not things which are somehow related to the automatic gearbox. No. For example, the 360 camera is only available with a turbo engine. The same goes for blind spot monitoring, keyless access and ignition, electrically operated driver's seat or heated front seats. And the panoramic roof is available only with a 1-liter turbo engine, but only with the manual gearbox.
What else do we have here? There's an eco button for a stop and start system, but it was cold enough for the system to never work anyway. There's also ESP button and hill descent assist, should you be extremely adventurous. Don't be, as the ground clearance is only about 16 centimeters. The manual gearbox versions get a regular handbrake, while the automatic model gets an electric parking brake. Cup holders are on the small side, and so is storage under the armrest. The glove box is okay, and so are the door pockets.
And as this is the manual 1.5-liter normally aspirated engine, it gets a traditional old-school ignition. MG engines are made by GM SAIC joint venture. These are GM's small gasoline engine series power plants. The automatic for the 1-liter turbo is supplied by ICEN. In some markets, the ZS EV is offered as well, with WLTP range of up to 440 kilometers. However, when looking for MG EVs, I'd look towards the MG4, a review of which is coming to this channel shortly.
Meanwhile, manufacturer claims this car will accelerate from 0 to 100 km per hour in 10.9 seconds. That's with the 1.5-liter normally aspirated engine, because the 1-liter turbo is slower. Claimed fuel economy is high 6, low 7 liters per 100 km combined. As it's winter and the roads are wet, I can't get good traction off the line, so my best acceleration run was 13 seconds. However, average fuel consumption of about 7 liters per 100 kilometers is realistic even during mild winter.
The MG ZS can tow up to 500 kilograms, which is not much, as most of the competition can tow up to 750 kilograms. Also, it can take up to 50 kilograms on the tow hitch, so 2-3 bikes, nothing more. Soundproofing is okay for this segment and price. The gearbox is light and precise. The car is easy to drive. My only complaint would be about the suspension, which is on the stiff side, which gets pretty old pretty quickly when you're on rougher roads, and I don't expect hot hatch qualities from what is clearly a budget crossover for the city. Visibility is okay, but despite it being in the specification, this car doesn't seem to have a reversing camera, even the regular one.
And the headrest on the front seats is slanted forwards a bit too much for my liking. In order to sit comfortably, I'd like to recline the backrest a bit more, but then I won't reach the steering wheel, which doesn't have reach adjustment. Also, lumbar support adjustment seems to be unavailable even with the electric driver's seat. Prices of the MG ZS start at €17,990 for the 1.5-liter engine and Excite trim. This car is an exclusive for €19,490. A similarly spec'd second-gen Dacia Duster, at the time of filming we're still waiting for the third gen to launch in showrooms, costs about the same.
And that's pretty much it. It drives a simple car which feels like from 10-15 years ago. But it's brand new and it comes with a 7-year, 150,000 kilometer warranty. There's also 7 years rust protection and 7 years of roadside assistance as long as you service the car at the dealer. And how do you like the MG ZS? Is this what you want cars to be like again, or do you prefer something more modern and technologically advanced? Drop me a comment below this video.
If you like my sarcastic, down-to-earth and possibly mildly amusing car reviews, join me every Friday at 3 p.m. Central European Time, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video as it helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.